All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Emma. I am the coordinator for this event, so I've been the one emailing you to set up your meetings. This is my third year doing this, so I'm very excited to kick off another year of organizing a day of action. This is on a very specific bill, and I'm personally very invested in it, so I'm very excited to support you all in your efforts. This is one of my favorite things that MassBike participates in. All right, I will kick it over to Galen.
Awesome. Thank you, Emma. I really appreciate your work and the logistics of keeping this day of action rolling. My name is Galen Mook. I'm the executive director here at MassBike. We do statewide advocacy related towards better bicycling, but of course, better bicycling is better for all traffic, and all safer traffic is better for biking. So we do focus on a lot of different bills, but where we are in the legislative session right now in 2026 in January is that we're really focusing on what we think can move this session to make the biggest impact. Today's webinar is going to be about how to host a meeting with your rep, with your senator. We'll go through a little bit of a how-to guide, and then we'll talk about the pieces of legislation in particular, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. I also want to thank the rest of the coalition partners that MassBike is working with for this day of action. We have Walk Massachusetts, of which we have Brendan Carney, who is the executive director, who's here. Brendan, thank you so much for being here. Also, we have a lot of support from Transportation for Massachusetts, Families for Safe Streets Massachusetts, the Boston Cyclists Union, let's see, many more, Livable Streets Alliance, and we have legislative briefings that's going to be co-hosted also by AAA Northeast, local municipal partners, and local law enforcement. So I want to start this by saying that this is not just a MassBike effort, though you may see our logo on the bottom of this slide deck. It's just because this is our standard slide deck, but we are by no means doing this alone. And really, this is a whole coalition-led effort to make traffic safety better. With that, I'll jump into the agenda. What we're going to talk about today is basically what the day of action next Tuesday is going to look like in terms of flow. Talk about goals of what we want to get out of the day of action. We'll talk a bit about how to set up meetings. The aim of today's webinar is to make it as easy as possible and to kind of get all those butterflies out so that you know that you've got some guidance. And it really is not as hard as it might seem if you've never had a meeting in the State House with your reps. We'll talk a bit about the legislative calendar and where this piece of legislation is currently in the two-year session. And then we'll dive into specifics of the bill itself. And again, we're talking about traffic safety cameras, also known as automated enforcement. And the goal here is to be able to let municipalities opt in to a system where they can do enforcement through cameras for violators of the most egregious of traffic violations of running red lights, speeding, and blocking the box. And of course, we'll also talk a bit about the the legislators who are supporting this, and then we'll wrap up with some Q&A. So thanks so much. What to expect next week. So on Tuesday, the 3rd, we are going to meet in the State House, right on Beacon Hill, starting a little before 10 a.m. You're welcome to join us. We'll have coffee, bagels, gluten-free and all, some light breakfast, and that's going to be for folks to have, the advocate members coming in and meeting and mingling, but we're also going to be inviting State House staffers. So this is a two-part event. The first part is a briefing, which is going to be very informative about the piece of legislation and the support that the legislation is going to bring. And then the second part of the day is going to be letting you fan out to have meetings with your reps. So this is really a two-parter, one focused specifically on folks in the building and one focused specifically on folks outside the building, i.e. you all. And our goal at MassBike and the rest of the coalition partners is to help you schedule, coordinate, and have the smoothest interactions with meetings with your reps. So show up a little bit before 9, get some coffee, get some caffeinated. Starting around 10, we're going to have our briefing. It's going to be about 45 minutes of education and slides and discussion. And then we're going to round up, and hopefully if you've already set up your meeting with your rep, you'll know when that is and how to get there. But we'll arm you with the packets, the one-pagers, the pins, the stickers, and all the stuff to get out there. And basically, that's it. We'll fan you out across the marble halls, and you'll have a wonderful day of meetings. And then we'll be there in the building pretty much up until 4:30 or so to wrap up. But don't think we're going to kick you out. This is the people's building, but this is essentially the flow of the day. It is important to note that the room that we're meeting at is on the fourth floor of the Senate wing. If you have never been to the building before, I recommend coming a little bit early. It's a little bit of a labyrinth. Legislation is never a straight shot. There's always twists and turns and offices in the way. But we are meeting in room 428, which is a beautiful room that holds probably the biggest room, actually, the biggest meeting room in the State House. But I should note that at noon, we need to switch rooms to a smaller room right adjacent to it. So if you want to leave your coat or leave your bag, we're going to have that in room 428A, and that's where we'll be for the rest of the day. So just a heads up there. All right. So what is the goals of our day of action next week? First off, it's to educate the State House staff. We really want the legislative directors and the district aides and all the rest to go out there with information about one, how to sponsor the bill and why it's important, but two, how to respond to any inquiries or questions that might be coming from constituents. So our first goal here is educating them. The second goal is building relationships with your legislators. This is your goal. We really want you to not just use this one piece of legislation, but to really build that rapport, get to know who they are. They are just people. And the best way to get to know how people are is to meet them, talk to them, understand their concerns, and really talk specifics about the district. The be all end all that we are kind of boiling this down into is to pass the traffic safety camera bills. We really need them to get out of the House Transportation Committee. And right now, the Senate version is in Ways and Means, so it is moving, but we do think we have momentum. So we'll get to that in a minute about how to make a specific ask, but that is really, really the meat of what we're trying to get at on next Tuesday. And then more generally, we are really interested in what is important to your rep. So reporting back to us at MassBike and our coalition partners, what was the conversation about? How did they receive it? Were they a full-throated yes? Were they a full-throated no? Was there more information that needed to happen? Or what other concerns and other issues did they want to talk about? So you're basically going to be on a fact-finding mission with your own personal rep and senator to find out what makes them tick. And in the end, the overall point of this is to create momentum for traffic safety legislation on Beacon Hill. This is not the only bill that's out there. There's a lot of other pieces of legislation that might be important to you, might be important to our coalition partners. But the goal here is traffic safety really is a group, collective movement. So try to think of this as moving that needle, that cultural needle forward. So that's the goals of next Tuesday. The first thing we'll talk about is really how to set up a meeting. It's not as hard as it might be, just to walk into an office, even unannounced, and say, hey, is anybody available to have a quick conversation? I've got a one-pager related towards a bill. I live on this street. This is what's important to me. I really appreciate the work of the representative, and then have a quick conversation. On the other hand, if you want to really set up a 30-minute meeting, email a district or legislative aide, really kind of sit down with them and kind of get into the nitty-gritty, that is where we can help you at MassBike kind of make sure that you are connected to your rep. So if you haven't already set up a meeting, please let us know. You can email emma@massbike.org. She's the one keeping track of everybody. And right now we have about 50 or 55 folks who say that they're coming to Lobby Day. To this day of action, but not everybody has confirmed that they have a meeting. So if you're on this call or if you're watching this webinar and you say, oh, shoot, I haven't done that yet, get in touch with us. We'll help you find the right names, we'll help you find the right people, and get out there and make that request for just a quick half an hour on the 3rd. And then again, if you haven't been able to do that, absolutely no worries. You are welcome to just waltz into your rep's office and say, hey, does anybody have a few minutes? I guarantee you the aides will be more than happy to talk to you because they care about you as a constituent, because they represent you. Don't forget that you pay their salary. For meeting guidelines, it's good to do some prep. I really ask that you come with like 1 to 2 sentences of why it's personally important to you. Make it really visceral, make it really impactful, make it really meaningful, and speak from your heart. For instance, I'm making it up now, but say I'm walking my kid to school, and I was crossing at a crosswalk, and a speeding driver blew through a red light and almost hit us. That means something. That is power, and that really is a feeling and an emotion that your rep or your aide can really have an empathic connection to. And you really want to make it because it matters to your district. talk about a specific street, talk about a specific intersection, talk about a specific school zone. Make it real and make it matter to the district. A little bit of bonus too, if you are able to take some time and research your rep, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but find on the mass.gov website, click around, see what other bills that they're sponsoring, see what their theme is. Are they a senator who really supports criminal justice reform? Are they really into women's reproductive rights? Are they really focused on environmental sustainability or budgets? There is always a tie that matters to what their work is that traffic safety can relate to, or whatever your story is that can relate to. But it is really important to make it matter to them as well as it matters to you. We do recommend coming a little bit early, just as a general rule of thumb. 5 minutes early is really nice. Be very respectful of their time. When you walk in, say, hey, how much time do you have? Make sure you're keeping it to that. And then I always get asked, well, what should I wear? To be honest, wear whatever's comfy. Um, this is a biking organization at Mass Bike, so we always like to say, please, no spandex. But that said, wear whatever's comfy, business casual. Um, it's the people's building. But honestly, I'm going to be in a suit, maybe a tie, but nothing too much. Work what is in your comfort level because your clothes will speak for you, but really we want you to feel like you are able to speak without hindrance and you are in a comfortable space. So basically, you do you. We'll put it that way. Really do ask that you are coming with the pitch as well. So we'll talk about that in a minute, but really it comes down to, will you support traffic safety cameras? Please make it kind of really flow naturally, but there is an ask. There is an action specifically that we're trying to get here. We have until March 18th to get that House bill moving. We have until probably mid-May going into June to get the Senate and the House version in a spot where it'll get to the floor. And we really think that this is the session that we can move it forward. So please get down to the ask. And then, we also say if you're going to do a little prep work, if you have like a bike project or a traffic project or a crosswalk or something that you'd like to highlight, bring a little bit more information because this is your meeting. We don't want to monopolize it with our ask. So if you want to bring other issues and other concerns, we are fully cool with that. Please don't feel like you have to stick with our script, but the one ask that we are making is you are getting to our pitch of will you support the traffic safety camera bill? Meeting flow is just, 35 minutes of intros, get comfy, ask them whether it's an aide or the rep themselves, ask them how they're doing, ask them what they've been up to. There's definitely something that they can relate to. Where do they live? Where do they grow up? Do they walk? Do they bike? Do they take the train? Are they around? Get to know them as people. Thank them. It's always important to butter them up. They do hard work, they do good work, and it is really difficult to get legislation through Beacon Hill. So thank them for their efforts, and they are basically doing this for you. They are your servants. So please be appreciative. It is easy for advocates to be pretty ornery. There's a lot that we want to change in the world. There's a lot of inequities that come with the traffic concerns out there. That said, we're flies with honey next Tuesday. So try to come with thank yous and appreciation. That is the aim of trying to get this out. This is not a rally. We're not doing a sit-in at Nurses Hall. There is a time and a place for that, don't get me wrong. But really what we're trying to do here is get them on our side to say, hey, please. Keep it relatively tight, keep it relatively moving. If you are a talker, which I can be, I have a timepiece. I literally will set my alarm for 3-minute segments. If you're able to go in a group, assign somebody as timekeeper, assign somebody as note taker, assign somebody as the asks, really kind of divide it up. We can talk about this on Tuesday morning when we're getting into the prep mode of giving you the materials to send out. But really, it's good to know that there is the need to kind of keep the flow moving. There's always the opportunity to dive into a specific issue, but if you want to re-divert the conversation back to the ask, by the end of your 20-minute meeting, please make sure that you're getting at least to that final question of will you support traffic safety cameras and how, as a constituent, can I follow up with you? Cool. We'll flow through this pretty much the same, just intros, how to make it happen, and really remind them that you are respectful of their time and you are very appreciative of their work. I'm going to fly through this. Um, Cool. So getting to the discussions and asks, we really do want you to say, why is traffic safety important to you as the rep? And I want you to kind of get that feedback. Bring that question as an open-ended question. How has traffic challenges, traffic violence impacted you in the district? Try to get some responses from the rep and senator that you can take notes on and you can send back to us. And the idea here is really, really, really like, how is it going? And then what can we do as advocates to really reframe some of those concerns to make sure that they're on board? For instance, we heard last week when we met with the Mass Municipal Major Cities Police Chiefs, they're very much concerned around budget. How will this be implemented? They're in control of all of their departments' budgets. There's so much strain on their dollar amount. So, great, that feedback is absolutely crucial for us to frame how we're building our one pagers, how we're building our pitch, how we're building our presentation of this. You are, again, our fact finders that are out there. So it's great to be able to really get some feedback of what makes them either concerned about this piece of legislation or very supportive of this legislation so we can underscore it. And I want to be very clear that it's totally okay to get stumped. It's totally okay if they have a question and say, well, how much will this cost? Or what have you seen in other states? And you're like, well, that's a really good question. I don't really have that answer. However, I'll take it back to the group and we'll get back to you on that. To be honest, that's almost the best outcome because that allows us to have a direct follow up with them to answer their concern and be able to kind of really show that we are doing our due diligence as advocates and not assuming that everything is like where it needs to be at this point. Cool. I'm gonna flow through a couple things here. And then lastly, for a follow-up, I think it's also really important to see if you can, in a couple of weeks, either meet them in district, follow up with a phone call, follow up with some sort of relationship build. This is not the only bill that you probably care about. This is not the only issue that you probably care about, but this is a foot in. If you haven't made that relationship yet, this is a foot in the door to say, hey, about that traffic safety camera bill, did you support it? Did you not support it? And by the way, let's work together on boom. The idea is to use this as one of the foundational stones that you're going to build that relationship off of because you're taking your time and we're really appreciative of your volunteer efforts as advocates. But the idea here is follow up, follow up, follow up. Also, extra bonus points if you're able to take a selfie with them in their office, if you're able to put that on social media, give them a tag, show that you are supporting them in their campaign or in their local effort to be more popular in the district or whatever else might be floating out there that really gets them to tick. Nothing makes them like you more than having some smiling faces on social media with a nice tag on it. And again, flies with honey with this one. This is really a time to be supportive and to get them to know who you are. Cool. And I also really like invite them on a biker walk in the district. Let's go see this in real life. Let's go to that crosswalk that you're concerned about. Let's go to that school zone that you're concerned about. Let's go to that point in the city where it's always congested because commuters cut through and they always block the blocks. That, to me, is the best way to do it because you're meeting them in real life and you're making it real for them. Cool. And then lastly, come back to us in room 428. Let us know how it went. Report back, report back, report back. Send an email to Emma and let us know how it went so that we can do our due diligence as advocates. Cool. Any questions about the meetings itself? This is kind of generic. You may have already known this, but the goal here is to make it so that you have a comfort level that you can really make these conversational. Cool. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. Moving forward, let's talk a little bit about the legislative calendar. Massachusetts has a full-time legislature that works 2 years. We are in the second year of the session. So if you were to follow this flow, you don't really need to read the whole thing, but I do want to say that we are right about here in January time. Between January and July of the second year, and that's when bills that are moving get locked into place. As I mentioned, the Senate version of this bill has made it out of the Transportation Committee. It's moving forward into Ways and Means, but that still means there's 3 more committees for it to get through before it's cleared to go out on the Senate floor. During that period of time, during the different readings, they call them, Modifications to the bill can be made, and to be honest, that's a good thing because all the concerns that we're hearing still can be addressed through actual legislative language. The House version of this bill is still in committee. The deadline for it to move is March 18th. It has to move out of the House committee favorably in order for the House Ways and Means to pick up and then to move that forward into the House readings. And the goal is to have two parallel tracks. Our dream is to have two identical bills make their way through both chambers and make them out to the floor to be voted on. It could be rolled into a bigger package that may come. Maybe there's a transportation bond bill, maybe there's a budget amendment or something along those lines. But if the language has been vetted favorably in committee, then that affords us the ability to say, hey, you've already looked at this, you've already approved it, let's get it moving. Between now and July is the time to really, really push. If we don't get it by July, there are other mechanisms, but they're much harder to get by the end of the session. And the session generally ends fully by the end of this year. And then if we miss that opportunity, we have to start all over again in 2027, which means we're probably waiting until 2029 to have another bite at this. So this is really the time to say, like, we can't wait. We really can't wait. The ask itself is really to move favorably, and it's a little wonky. It's H3754 and S2344. The reason that there's two numbers is because there's one House version, 3754, and one Senate version, 2344. Now, right now, both bills are identical. That might change as they move forward because the Senate and the House might add some things and change some things based off feedback. And again, this is feedback that you're going to help us find out. But generally, what they're stating is that this is a bill that allows municipalities to opt in to installing traffic safety cameras. It's important to note that it's an opt-in. This is not a mandate. This is not a requirement. This is only an allowance. It's also important to note that this captures violations of red light running, speeding, and blocking the box. There's other traffic safety camera legislation that passed last year, one around school buses. So if the red arm out is out on a school bus, there can be cameras that capture violators who drive past that. And there's a secondary MBTA bus bill that if anybody is driving in a bus lane or parking in a bus lane, their license plate can be captured as a parking violation. Those two pieces of legislation have already moved forward, although they have yet to really be implemented. But it's important to note that the legislature already kind of has cracked the seal on automated enforcement. Now, what we're seeking here, though, is the safety for all people who are out on the roads, because we know that speeding, red light running, and blocking the box are three big dangers on our roadways. You will receive information on this, and I'll jump to the one pager in a second of some of the pieces of information we'll share with you. But I also want to underscore that this is not the only thing you want to bring to the rep. That's totally cool. Like, bring your own priorities. This is just where we're at right now. As long as you're making our ask, we're going to be happy. But if you want to bring another issue, whether it's a transportation related or not, whether it's a project or whatever else really gets your bees buzzing, use it. Because we want to make sure that you as advocates are utilizing this as a way to move your issues forward. Cool. So here's the meat of it. Senate 2344 and House 3754. It's called an act relative to traffic regulation using road safety cameras. We're just calling them traffic safety cameras, but you get the gist. What it does, again, as I was mentioning, it's only an opt-in. It gives municipalities the ability to say that they want to put in cameras just for these specific violations. This is already in 22 states. Plus, if you include major cities and other types of violations, it's about 46 that are around. We're a little bit behind the curve on this, but we're about midpoint. But I think that now is the time to say that Massachusetts can really start to be a leader in this based off some of the experiences and pitfalls that other states have been through. We feel confident that we're at the level now that this is a really good time to move this. It's important to note that these cameras are only capturing people who make violations. These are not blanket license plate readers. Those are out there and they're very controversial. You might have heard of them. There's a brand called Flock, the Flock cameras that are just scanning license plates and they connect to databases that are connected to law enforcement. And there really aren't any safeguards to that at the moment. This bill provides safeguards. It only captures people who are violating the laws that are already on the books. It also only captures license plates from the back of the vehicle. So there's no personal identifying imagery. It can't tell who was driving, which is great because it can't tell skin color. It can't tell age. It can't tell race. It really is almost the same as how we already do this with tolling on the Tobin Bridge and on I-90, where they have those automatic license plate readers, or with parking violations, where they scan around and you are able to capture license plates. The violation is tied to the vehicle, not tied to the driver. And that's very important because prior versions of this bill were opposed by the ACLU and NAACP for those specific reasons. So we have, under the guise of another session's worth of work, we have written into the bill these protections to address those major concerns. So please keep that in mind when this comes up, that you will obviously hear, well, what about all of the data privacy concerns? Well, it only is capturing people who are already violating the law and nobody else. It also has very strong data privacy built into the language where after the adjudication of this, whether it's appealed or paid, 48 hours after the case is closed, that data is destroyed, which no other of these traffic safety bills or camera bills have. So it's actually the strongest, in my opinion, of the data collection that is being done through these cameras. Um, it's also important to note that the violations are a varying degree of fines. They start off at $25, which arguably is pretty low for somebody who's running a red light. But the goal for this is to make it so it's not punitive. We don't want people to have to pay wild fees and fines for this. It really is about education. The first violation is a warning, and the goal for this is to prevent the violations, not to really make money off the occurrences. And as a protection for that, we've written into this version of the bill that any net revenue that comes from the tickets collected by the municipality, any revenue that does not cover the administration or the installation of these cameras, goes back into the Commonwealth Transportation Fund. So the municipalities do not have an incentive to make lots of money off this because they can't make lots of money off this. It is important to note that the contracts for the camera companies are not per violation. It's a flat rate. So we've built into this the concern around, is this going to be a money grab? It is not going to be a money grab. There's no way for it to be a money grab. So we think that based off a couple of sessions worth of work of hearing where the concerns are, very valid concerns, that we have one of the strongest traffic safety camera pieces of legislation in the country based off the feedback that we've been receiving from constituents within the Commonwealth, but also based off experiences around the country. Cool. I'll take a quick pause here, though. If anybody has any questions about this, I know this is a lot, but Julia, yeah, please jump in. I'm going to ask you to unmute. Hold on.
Nope. I clicked it. I just not quickly enough. So municipalities opt in, but what happens with roadways within municipalities that are managed by DCR?
Great
So, for
question.
example, the Jamaica Way.
That's a great question. To be honest, this bill is for municipalities, and so it would not facilitate the state to do that. They would have to do it on their own.
Oops.
Yeah. No, and this is an important distinction, and this might be something that we bring up as a concern to Rep. Owens and Senator Brownsberger, who these bills are, to see if there's a way that the state roads can also be included.
Could the crossroads be like at Longwood and the J-Way? Could Longwood be covered
Mhm.
and not the J-Way?
Yeah, that is a potential. I would think that. I'm not sure, but I do think the J-Way, though it is a state road, like Route 20 is Commonwealth Avenue, it is still under the jurisdiction of the municipality. So I think the city would be able to install there. It's a little bit of a different story if you're thinking of something that's like the Fells Way or Soldiers Field Road or
Yep.
something that is a pure ownership of a state property. But if it's a state road within a municipality, I'm pretty sure that it would allow the municipality to put these cameras up. Cool. Great. If any other questions too, please feel free to let us know and also throw it in the chat. And then a couple other stats. This is part of the one pager that we'll be handing out. We've been tracking studies across the country, and it is absolutely clear that when cameras go up, so does safety. Violations go down. Just the signage saying that there are cameras prevent people from feeling like they can run a red light without compromise or without a consequence. So the idea here is, again, we want to mitigate the violation. We want to prevent the violation. We want to incentivize people by giving them the tools to say, hey, wait, this isn't cool. Give them by the municipalities to say, hey, it's not cool. And let's put at least, a ticket to the vehicle, even if it doesn't really fully extend to any moving violation or any points on a license, or anything more severe. So this is the goal of where we're at. This is supported by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA. This has been called for in the city of Boston since Mayor Menino's administration. We have a separate home rule bill filed by Salem, and Somerville. And so we are seeing the need for this really boil up because this is a tool that municipalities are asking for. So, where are we at on this? Current sponsors are moving along. We have the House and we have the Senate version, right? Again, the Senate version has gone forward. So, if these are your senators or your reps, what you're going with into those meetings is a thank you, first off. And how can we be supportive to move it into the next stage? On the House side, it's to get it out of committee. On the Senate side, it's to move it from Ways and Means into the readings and really start to hammer down every, dotted I and semicolon to make sure that everybody's on board with this. But all of these, if you're on here, if your rep or senator is on here, again, we have Somerville, we have Cambridge, we have Lynn, we have Belmont, we have Alston, Watertown. It'd be nice. We have Worcester. It'd be nice if we had a little bit further out west. Would love to have some Berkshires on here. Would love to have some Cape Cod on here. And Emma, yeah, jump in.
I just wanted to share some news that Anne actually shared with me that Representative Christopher Worrell has agreed to co-sponsor this bill. So that's very exciting. I was very happy to hear that.
Nice work, Anne. This is being updated as we speak. So this is great. I grabbed this from the clerk's office. So yeah, this is awesome. Julia, please.
Sure. This is a question that I think you should actually address more in the prep next week. But what do we do if our senator hypothetically was very supportive last year and is not a sponsor? Do you have language around that? Do you really expect somebody like it's a relatively low number of sponsors? If you could talk about that a little bit to the whole group
Yeah, I mean,
next week, that
it
would
might not
be
have flown to their radar. So your job is to elevate this to their radar, especially if they were a sponsor in the past. You can say, hey, you really were supportive of this in the past. Has anything changed? And if
Mhm.
so, give that feedback back to us so we can elevate it. Or maybe they just haven't gotten around to sponsoring it yet. And now's the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, just following up with that, Julia, like I talked to my rep about it and like I was wondering why he wasn't sponsoring it. And he's like, "Oh, tell me more about it." Like we get so many bills that we like see all the time. So like, you know, where are we at on that? And like he's like, "Yeah, that's something we should be sponsoring. This is the third or fourth time. It looks like it, proceeded pretty far last time. So I think there's been some good due diligence on this. Yeah, we can absolutely support that." So
Thanks,
Thanks.
Brendan. And is your rep on here, Brendan? Cool.
yeah, he is. So like I've there's like four reps that all touch a piece of Framingham. So like I'm actually thinking of stopping by and seeing my rep and then going and talking to one of the other reps that I've met before. So
Mhm.
That actually leads to one of my other questions, Brendan, which is that I am right outside another district, and a friend of mine is running against that state senator, and I'd be interested in just tagging along to that and, you know, if anybody's going. And so, um, again, that morning, if we can find out, where the other meetings are and if there's time to tag along,
I
that would be
think I
awesome.
think you are like teeing up Galen and Emma here on like people
Mhm.
being able to tag along with other folks. So
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep, 100%. We're gonna try to put people in groups the best we can. Even if you're not in that district as like a resident, I'm sure you walk or bike or take a train or transportation is regional. You don't
Mhm.
just bike to the edge of a district and turn around.
Right.
Um, and you had a really good point there, Julia, that some of these folks are going into primary season in a couple months. They're going to start paying attention to the issues that matter to their constituents. This does queue up the next slide of some other heavy hitters that we may need to lean into. These are the folks who are on the Joint Committee on Transportation. The people who we've starred are folks who have already sponsored this bill. We have a lot of work to do in the House. So, somebody was mentioning that Lydia Edwards is their senator. I think Senator Edwards would probably be pretty supportive of this. Really, this is, if you are in the district here, this is a really important thing to know because they will help elevate this to the chair, who in the end needs to move it forward. So on the Senate side, we're really lucky because Brendan Crichton, who represents Lynn, is already a co-sponsor of the bill. He's already moved it forward out of the Senate committee. We have some work to do in the House. Um, Chair Arciero, wonderful guy. He's out in Westford. He's got a lot of concerns out there, but this is the idea of, wait, if a lot of the other committee members are agitating around this, this really might move forward. And again, to Brendan's point, it might not have come to their radars yet. So this is where your influence is absolutely essential. Cool.
Quick question. Is anyone else from the Boston, Cambridge area online?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got a lot of Boston reps here, but you're Charlestown, right, Dan?
Yes, but we don't have very many listed here, though.
Yeah. I don't know. Your senator, I think, is Domenico, I believe.
Right.
He's
And
not on
and
here, but he is pretty good in leadership. So if
I'm going to hit
Sal's
him.
in on it, he might like it.
Yeah, I'm going to hit him, and Dan Ryan is the other one.
Excellent. Yeah. And I shouldn't say that, or I don't mean to say that if your rep or senator is not on this list, that they don't matter. Everybody's got influence in the building, and everybody's helping each other out there. It's really, a personality-driven building. So even if they don't have a leadership position, or even if they're not on this specific committee, they care about this concern and they want to hear from you. Cool. And then lastly, just back to the day of, yeah, really good point, Julia, if you want to tag along. So that time after the briefing when we're all collecting up, assuming that folks haven't already left for meetings, which is totally fine if your meeting is during the briefing, talk to your offices when you can. We're more than happy to either have you go with somebody who might be a little more of a veteran, even if they're not in the district, so that you feel like you've got a buddy system. I love going to the meetings and talking to folks, and because I work in a statewide organization, every district is my district. The idea here is that we're here to make it as easy as possible for you. And if you're zooming in here and you can't meet in the State House, also wonderful to host these meetings in the district. There are district aides that'll always meet with you. Take them to the local coffee shop, find out what their schedules are, and make it work. Just because we're hosting this on next Tuesday is not the only opportunity for you to connect with your rep and senator. The goal here is to build that relationship amongst yourselves. Yeah, Ann, please.
So, I live in Boston, and I know the previous chief of streets had always lobbied for this to become law. And I'm wondering, is there any sort of local support that we could get that would help, like city councilors, or is there any other sort of like ways to influence and build support that would sort of keep the momentum going?
Of course. That's a great point. Really good point. Do you have a relationship with your counselor? Maybe you could ask them to see if we could get a letter from the city council. The mayor has been supportive of this. I don't know where the interim chief is at this point. I do know that all of the Boston reps, for the most part, are co-sponsors of this bill already. So there is the push that this is a known piece of legislation. But you had a really good point that if you have a relationship with your municipal leaders, them weighing in is extra points for sure. I do believe that we're going to have the mayor of Somerville attend the briefing. So I'm going to see if Mayor Wilson can say a few words about how this is important for the municipality. But it is because this bill is focused on a municipal empowerment. It is very, very important that leadership in municipalities are weighing in just the same. Really good point. John, please, yeah.
So would that go for select boards also?
Love it. Select boards, city council, whatever your city or town structure is. Local police chiefs, they represent the municipality as well. And I think this is very important, again, as an allowance for municipalities to do what they need to do to make your road safer.
Of course, our police chief just retired, so I don't know if the interim will be willing to go for it, but I think we can
Yeah.
push our select board to support it. Okay,
Awesome.
thanks.
Cool. And again, this is not the be all end all. After the third, if we can send in a letter of support, we have until March 18th on the House side to move it. So there is still a couple of weeks. And the beauty of us doing this now is that this is before February vacation. And this does allow us to get some ducks in a row to make a final push if we are sprinting to the line come March. Hey, Dan, jump in.
Yeah, I just want to let you know that I already been working on Nick, who's the new interim chief of streets.
Great. Yeah. Make the ask just to him too. I know that the mayor's got other cards on the table with the legislature, so not sure if this will rise to the point of getting an official letter, but even if there's informal support from the city, that will make it nudge this forward. Thank you. Julia, please.
Does this legislation cover vehicles other than cars that have tags?
Tell me more what you mean.
Motorcycles, you know, any vehicles that have tags other than cars? I mean, cars, and I assume that trucks and vans are covered, but really motorcycle. And as we move through this, like what are bikes, what are scooters, et cetera,
Mhm.
and things are more likely to, I mean, at some point, more vehicles might be required to have tags. Would they be covered or carved out or unknown?
That is a really good question. I might not have the full answer, but my read of the bill is that it's any registered vehicle because it goes towards the vehicle's registration.
Mhm.
So if it's a scooter that's registered, if it's a motorcycle that's registered, because this is a vehicle violation. Um, I don't think the bill distinguishes between scale or type of license plate. But I will find that answer out before next Tuesday. Or maybe Brendan, if you jump in with an answer too.
Well, no, I think you're right. I think it is treated it basically like a parking ticket, so it needs to be the camera needs to be able to see a license plate. So if the registered vehicle has a license plate, and if that's a motorcycle, I believe that would count.
Mhm.
So I'm a big fan of trying to think ahead to unintended consequences.
Mhm.
And I definitely am for this happening, but I can
Mhm.
imagine that this might make it harder to require other vehicles to be registered, A, and B, I can see unregistered vehicles causing damage, and that might be an interesting thing. I mean, it's
With the
not for full discussion now.
Sure,
Of course,
sure. With
because
with the thinking ahead thing, though, I know Senator Brownsberger is also concerned making sure that it like goes to the vehicle because like he's like if we are thinking long term and if there are autonomous vehicles on the street, how do we make sure that they are being held to same traffic safety standards and like not going to we are saying it's like on the license of the driver because it's like, well, no, like that's why we want it to be on the vehicle and like we want to regulate those vehicles to make safer streets for everyone out on the street too. So
absolutely. And I hadn't thought about the autonomous vehicle aspect. What I was thinking about was the very real potential for unlicensed vehicles, especially scooters, causing accidents, causing crashes, and this won't address that.
Mhm.
But
That's a really good point.
right.
This is obviously just one piece of legislation. I think there's a parallel track currently of what the Micromobility Commission might be coming out with in terms of how different electric vehicles may or may not be registered or require registration. So
yeah,
I think that this does beg a very important discussion. So I think, Julia, you're bringing up some very good points.
And my point is really for the purpose of tonight, it's really to be able to anticipate the questions that might come up and be like, that's a separate issue. This is about what we can do about this issue
Hmm.
and not let it sidetrack.
Yeah. Great answer.
Can I add one thing? A bicycle would normally have a license plate on its spokes. It'd be to the side, not to the rear. So it wouldn't be caught.
I'm not quite sure what you mean, Dan, in terms of a license plate on a bicycle, because there's no,
Well, it's threaded onto the spokes of the wheel.
hmm.
That's where they mostly get done.
Oh, interesting. And you mean a bicycle?
Yes.
Interesting. I'm not
Uh,
familiar with that. That's interesting.
I haven't seen any EV bikes that had license plates on the tail
Hmm.
or the seat. I haven't seen that, but I have seen them on the spokes.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I think to the point of it being through the registrar, it up to a certain device, such as a moped, anything that is less power than that does not need registration. So I don't believe this would pertain to those. And that said, people should stop at red lights, should stop at red lights. But again, the point of this is to really tackle the biggest dangers that are out there, which obviously are the heavy vehicles who are speeding and running red lights. Cool. But I'm curious, Dan. Let's talk a little further on this spoke conversation. I'm curious as to the example you're referring to.
Well, I was in Bermuda and in Europe. That's where I've seen them.
Cool. Cool. Well, we got to my questions page. You're all wonderful for staying on this and for pushing forward. We're gonna have a great day next Tuesday. I do want to thank, though, this is definitely not a mass bike effort alone. We have a lot of help from the Transportation for Massachusetts, Walk Massachusetts, Boston Cyclists Union, Livable Streets Alliance, Families for Safe Streets, and Safe Roads Alliance. And I think we're going to have a very robust conversation on Tuesday. Obviously, there is work that still is going to be done. I don't think that this is baked and ready to move yet, but now is the time to get this elevated to a point where they're paying attention to it at the State House, because every session there's something like 5,000 bills that get filed. So we need to make sure that we are keeping our eye on the ball on this one. Cool. I think that might be it from everybody. Um, cool. Excellent. Well, I really appreciate your time and effort and energies here, and I look forward to seeing you on Tuesday. And if you can't make Tuesday, no worries. Let's keep in touch and let us know how your conversations are going.